Ambassador Zurith of the Velian Collective had served on the Galactic Federation Council for 300 cycles. In all that time, she had never met a species quite like the humans. They were young, barely 1,000 years into space travel, and yet they carried themselves with a strange kind of confidence that the older races found puzzling. She remembered the day the humans first arrived at the Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime. Their delegation was small, just 5 individuals wrapped in simple clothing. They did not wear the ceremonial armor of the Crethian warriors or the flowing robes of the Luminari scholars. They came as they were, soft-skinned and seemingly fragile. The council had expected them to be humble. After all, humanity was the youngest member species to be considered for Federation membership. Their technology was impressive but not remarkable. Their ships were fast but not the fastest. Their weapons were powerful but not feared. By all measures, they should have been quiet observers, grateful for the opportunity to learn from their elders. But the humans were not humble. They were polite, yes, and respectful. But there was something in their eyes that Zurith could not understand. It was not arrogance. It was something else entirely. A kind of fire that burned without heat, a light that seemed to come from somewhere deep within them. The leader of the human delegation was a woman named Commander Sarah Chen. She had gray streaks in her dark hair and lines on her face that spoke of many years of experience. When she addressed the council, her voice was calm but strong. "We thank the Galactic Federation for this opportunity," she had said. "We come not as conquerors or beggars. We come as what we have always been. We are the children of a star, and we wish to take our place among our cosmic family." Zurith had heard many species describe themselves in grand terms. The Crethians called themselves the Eternal Warriors. The Luminari were the Seekers of Truth. The Velians, her own people, were known as the Weavers of Peace. These titles were earned through millennia of achievement and sacrifice. But Children of a Star seemed strange to her. It was almost humble in its simplicity. And yet the humans spoke these words with such pride, such deep meaning, that Zurith knew there was something she was missing. Over the following months, as humanity's membership application was reviewed, Zurith made it her mission to understand these strange beings. She studied their history, their culture, their science. She learned about their world, a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star they called Sol. She learned about their wars and their peace, their cruelty and their kindness. She learned that they were a species of contradictions. But she still did not understand why they called themselves Children of a Star. One evening, after a particularly long council session, Zurith found Commander Chen standing alone on the observation deck of Nexus Prime. The deck looked out over the vast nebula that surrounded the station, a cloud of gas and dust that glowed with soft colors in the light of distant stars. "May I join you, Commander?" Zurith asked. Chen turned and smiled. "Of course, Ambassador, please." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the nebula shift and swirl. Finally, Zurith spoke. "I have been studying your species, Commander. I find you fascinating but also confusing." Chen laughed softly. "We confuse ourselves sometimes, Ambassador. What troubles you?" "Your title," Zurith said, "Children of a Star. I have heard many species claim great names for themselves, names that speak of power or wisdom or ancient glory, but your name speaks of, what, being young, being small." Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "Let me ask you something, Ambassador. How did your people come to be?" Zurith tilted her head. "The Velians evolved on our homeworld, Velia Prime, over millions of cycles. Our earliest ancestors were simple creatures in the great oceans. Over time, we grew more complex, developed intelligence, built civilization." "And your world," Chen continued, "how did it form?" "It formed from the cosmic dust around our star, billions of cycles ago. As the dust gathered and compressed, it became our planet." Chen nodded slowly. "And the elements that make up your world, the atoms in your body, where did they come from?" Zareth opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She knew the answer, of course. Every educated being in the galaxy knew the answer, but she had never thought about it in quite this way before. The heavy elements, she said slowly, were forged in the hearts of dying stars. When massive stars explode, they scatter these elements across the universe, and from this material, new stars and planets are born. Yes, Chen said softly, you know this scientifically. All the advanced species do, but I wonder if you truly understand what it means. She turned to face Zareth fully, and in her eyes was that strange fire that Zareth had noticed from the very beginning. Every atom of carbon in my body was forged in the heart of a star that lived and died billions of years before my planet was born. Every atom of iron in my blood came from a stellar explosion so violent that it briefly outshone entire galaxies. The calcium in my bones, the oxygen in my lungs, the nitrogen in my DNA, all of it was cooked in the nuclear furnaces of stars that no longer exist. She paused, letting the words settle. We are not merely beings who evolved on a planet orbiting a star, ambassador. We are made of stars. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. We are dead stars walking and talking and wondering at our own existence. Zareth felt something shift in her understanding. She had always known these facts, but she had never felt them before. Not like this. When we look up at the night sky, Chen continued, we are not looking at something separate from ourselves. We are looking at our ancestors. Those distant suns are our family. The iron in that nebula out there is the same iron that flows through my veins. We are connected to the cosmos not by religion or philosophy, but by chemistry, by physics, by the very atoms that make us who we are. So when you call yourselves children of a star, Zareth began. We are being literal, Chen said. Completely and scientifically literal. We are the children of Sol, yes, but we are also the children of every star that died so that we could live. We carry their ashes in our blood. We are their legacy, their gift to a universe that would otherwise be empty and cold. Zareth was silent for a long time, processing this new understanding. Finally, she spoke. I have known these facts for my entire life, Commander, but I have never felt them as you do. Why is that? Chen smiled sadly. I don't know, Ambassador. Perhaps it is because humanity is young. We only recently learned where we came from. For most of our history, we looked up at the stars and wondered. We told stories about gods and spirits living in the sky. When we finally learned the truth, that we are made of the same stuff as those distant lights, it changed us. It became part of who we are. She looked back out at the nebula. My grandmother used to tell me that we are all stardust dreaming of the stars. I thought it was poetry when I was young. Now I know it is simply the truth. Zareth returned to her quarters that night with much to think about. She began to see humanity in a new light, not as a young species still finding its way, but as something different. Something that had taken a scientific truth and woven it into the very fabric of their identity. She did not yet understand how deep this belief ran in humanity. She did not yet know what the children of a star were capable of, but she would learn. The entire Galactic Federation would learn. And when they did, they would never look at the stars the same way again. 3 years passed since humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Federation. In that time, the humans had proven themselves to be capable and reliable partners. They contributed to scientific research, participated in peacekeeping missions, and established trade relations with dozens of species. But they remained something of a mystery to most Federation members. They were friendly but kept parts of themselves private. They shared their technology freely but guarded their cultural practices carefully. They seemed open and transparent, yet there was always a sense that there was more beneath the surface. Zareth had maintained her friendship with Commander Chen, who had returned to human space after the initial diplomatic mission. They communicated regularly through subspace channels, discussing everything from politics to philosophy. Through these conversations, Zareth had come to understand humanity better than most non-humans in the galaxy. But even she was not prepared for what was about to happen. The crisis began with a distress signal from the Outer Rim, a colony world called Haven's Rest, home to 3 million beings from a dozen different species, had been attacked by something unknown. The first reports were confused and terrifying. Ships were being destroyed, cities were burning, and the attackers showed no interest in communication or surrender. The Galactic Federation dispatched an emergency response fleet, commanded by High Admiral Toreth of the Krethian Navy. It was the largest military mobilization in decades, with ships from every major species contributing to the effort. Humanity sent a battle group of 20 vessels, a modest contribution compared to the hundreds of ships from older races. Zareth was assigned to the fleet as a diplomatic observer. Her role was to attempt communication with the attackers and negotiate a peaceful resolution if possible. She had done this many times before. She had talked down hostile fleets, negotiated surrenders, and brokered peace between species that had been enemies for centuries. She believed in the power of words to prevent violence. But when the fleet arrived at Haven's Rest, she realized that words would not be enough. The attackers were a species called the Devourers. They were ancient, far older than any species in the Federation. They had been sleeping in the void between galaxies for millions of years, and now they had awakened hungry. Their ships were massive, dark constructs that seemed to absorb light itself. They did not communicate because they did not need to. They were not interested in negotiation or conquest. They were interested only in consumption. The first battle was a disaster. The Federation fleet engaged the Devourer armada with all their might, but it was not enough. The ancient ships shrugged off weapons fire that would have destroyed planets. They moved with a speed and precision that defied physics, and when they struck back, their weapons tore through shields and armor like they were not even there. In the first hour, the Federation lost 100 ships. By the end of the first day, nearly a third of the fleet was destroyed or disabled. High Admiral Toreth ordered a retreat to regroup, but the Devourers pressed their advantage, pursuing the survivors relentlessly. Zareth watched from the bridge of the command ship as the fleet fell apart around her. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. The Devourers were not simply winning. They were hunting. They were feeding. "We cannot hold them," Toreth said grimly. "Our weapons have no meaningful effect on their largest vessels. Their smaller ships are faster than ours. If we continue to engage, we will be wiped out within 2 days." The command staff was silent. No one had any solutions to offer. The Devourers were simply too powerful, too advanced, too alien. They were a force of nature, and you did not negotiate with nature. "There is one option," a voice said from the back of the room. Everyone turned. The speaker was a human, a young officer named Lieutenant Commander David Okonkwo. He was part of the small human contingent aboard the command ship, serving as a liaison to the human battle group. "Speak," Toreth commanded. Okonkwo stepped forward. He was nervous, Zareth could see, but determined. "My people have studied the Devourer ships. Their power generation is similar to ours, but much more advanced. They use a form of stellar conversion. They harvest energy directly from stars." "We know this," Toreth said impatiently. "They consume the sun of a nearby system to fuel their awakening. What is your point?" "My point, Admiral, is that their technology is stellar-based, which means it has stellar weaknesses." Okonkwo took a breath. "The human battle group has been developing something, a weapon we hoped we would never have to use, but given the circumstances." He pulled up a holographic display showing a schematic of something Zareth did not recognize. "We call it a nova bomb. It uses compressed stellar matter to create a localized stellar event, essentially, a small artificial supernova. The energy release would be enough to destroy everything within a significant radius, including Devourer ships." The room erupted in shock and outrage. You have weapons capable of creating supernovas, Torth demanded. This is a violation of at least a dozen Federation treaties. With respect, Admiral, we never signed those treaties, Okonkwo said quietly. We developed these weapons before we joined the Federation, and we never used them. We hoped we never would have to, but the Devourers are killing millions of people. If we don't stop them here, they will continue to other systems, other worlds, other civilizations. Torth was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Even if I were to authorize the use of such a weapon, which I have not, how would you deliver it? The Devourer flagship is surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. Any approach would be suicide. Okonkwo nodded. Yes, Admiral, we know. There was something in his voice that made Zureth's blood run cold. She understood suddenly what the humans were proposing. You're volunteering for a one-way mission, she said. Okonkwo met her eyes. Not just me, Ambassador. The entire human battle group has volunteered, all 20 ships, all 2,000 crew members. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of beings confronting something they did not understand. Why? Torth asked finally. Why would you sacrifice yourselves for species you barely know, for a federation you only recently joined? Okonkwo smiled slightly. Because, Admiral, we are all children of stars, and when our brothers and sisters are threatened, we protect them, even if it costs us everything. He looked around the room at the gathered officers from dozens of different species. Where we come from, we have a saying. Every atom of iron in our blood was forged in the heart of a dying star. That star gave everything it had so that we could exist. It did not ask for anything in return. It simply gave. He paused. Now it is our turn to give. Zureth found herself standing before she realized she had moved. This is not acceptable, she said. There must be another way. We cannot ask you to throw your lives away. Okonkwo shook his head. You are not asking, Ambassador. We are offering. This is who we are. This is what it means to be children of a star. He turned back to Torth. Admiral, we are requesting permission to detach from the fleet and execute our mission. All we ask is that you hold the Devourer's attention long enough for us to get close. Torth stared at the young human for a long moment. Then he turned to his tactical officer. How long would they need? Given the current disposition of enemy forces, 3 hours minimum, possibly more. 3 hours of holding against a superior enemy. 3 hours of watching ships die and crew members perish. 3 hours of hell. Torth took a deep breath. Permission granted, Lieutenant Commander. May your stars guide you home. Okonkwo saluted. Thank you, Admiral. We will not fail you. As he left the bridge, Zureth followed him. Wait, she called. Please wait. He turned in the corridor, his face tired but peaceful. Ambassador. I need to understand, she said. I need to understand why you can do this, how you can face death so calmly. I know you believe you are children of stars, but this is something more. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. Do you know how stars die, Ambassador? She nodded. They exhaust their fuel and collapse. Some become white dwarfs, others explode as supernovas. Yes, but before they die, they do something beautiful. They take the simple elements they were born with, hydrogen and helium, and they forge them into something more complex. Carbon, oxygen, iron, gold, all the elements that make life possible. They spend billions of years creating, building, giving. He smiled. And then, when they have given everything they have, they scatter those gifts across the universe. They die so that others can live. They sacrifice themselves so that, billions of years later, beings like you and me can exist and love and dream. Tears were forming in his eyes, but his voice remained steady. We are not brave, Ambassador. We are not special. We are simply remembering what our ancestors taught us. The stars gave everything for us. How can we do any less for others? Zareth had no words. She simply reached out and took his hand, a gesture of connection that transcended species and culture. Then go, she said finally. Go and shine, child of the stars, and know that we will remember your light forever. The next 3 hours were the longest of Zareth's life. She remained on the bridge of the command ship, watching as the Federation fleet fought desperately to hold the Devourer's attention. Ships were destroyed by the dozen. Thousands of beings died in the cold vacuum of space, but still the fleet held, buying time for the human battle group to make its approach. Zareth monitored the humans' progress on a private display. 20 ships racing toward the heart of the enemy formation. They were so small compared to the Devourer vessels, so fragile, like sparks flying toward a dark sun. 2 hours in, the Devourers finally noticed the approaching human ships. They dispatched a squadron of interceptors to destroy them. 3 human ships were lost in the first exchange, then 2 more. But the others pressed on, not slowing, not hesitating. "They're not turning back," the tactical officer said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Even with the interceptors on them, they're not turning back." "They never intended to," Zareth said quietly. At 2 hours and 40 minutes, the human battle group reached the outer defense perimeter of the Devourer flagship. By now, only 12 ships remained, but they were close. So close. The Devourers seemed to sense the danger. The flagship began to move, trying to create distance. But the human ships were faster, darting through gaps in the defense network, taking fire but refusing to stop. At 2 hours and 52 minutes, a transmission came through from the lead human ship. It was Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, his face bloody, his bridge burning behind him. "This is the HSS Prometheus to Federation Command. We are in position. Beginning detonation sequence." Torith responded immediately. "Understood, Prometheus. It has been an honor." Okonkwo smiled through his injuries. "The honor was ours, Admiral. Remember us. Remember what we did here. And when you look up at the stars, know that we are part of them now." He turned to someone off-screen. "Commander Chen, do you want to say anything?" And suddenly, Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen. The woman Zareth had spoken with on the observation deck 3 years ago, the woman who had first explained what it meant to be children of a star, was on that ship. She had been there the whole time. "Sarah," Zareth said, her voice breaking. Chen looked at her through the screen and smiled. "Hello, Zareth. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to say goodbye to a friend." "You cannot do this. You cannot." "I can," Chen said gently. "This is my choice. This has always been my choice. I told you once that we are dead stars walking and talking. Now I get to return to what I always was, Stardust, joining the cosmic dance once more." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across the entire command channel, heard by every ship in the fleet. "To all who can hear me, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Battle Group. In a few moments, we will detonate our weapons and, if we are lucky, we will destroy the Devourer threat. We do this not because we do not fear death. We do. We fear it very much, but we fear letting others die even more." She took a breath. "We are the children of stars. We were born from their light and their sacrifice. Today we honor that heritage. Today we become like our ancestors, beacons of light in an endless darkness. Today we give everything we have so that others may live." She smiled one last time. "Do not mourn for us. We are going home." The screen went dark. 30 seconds later, the sensors recorded an energy spike that exceeded anything in Federation records. A new star was born at the heart of the Devourer fleet, a brief, brilliant sun that outshone entire galaxies for a fraction of a second. When the light faded, the Devourer flagship was gone. So were their escorts, their interceptors, their entire command structure. The remaining Devourer vessels, suddenly leaderless, scattered into the void. And where the human battle group had been, There was nothing but expanding light and the echoes of a sacrifice that would never be forgotten. Zareth stood alone on the observation deck, watching the light fade. Her tears flowed freely, and she did not try to stop them. Around her, she could hear other beings weeping, species that had never met the humans now mourning them as though they had lost family. And perhaps they had, she thought. Perhaps in the way that mattered most, they were all family. All of them children of the stars. The funeral service was held 3 weeks later on Nexus Prime. Every species in the Federation sent representatives. The Grand Assembly Hall, which could hold 100,000 beings, was filled to capacity. Billions more watched through broadcast links across the galaxy. Zareth had been asked to speak on behalf of the Federation Council. It was an honor she had not wanted but could not refuse. She had known the humans better than most. She had understood them, at least a little, and she owed it to Sarah Chen and all the others to try to explain what they had done and why. She stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered multitudes. So many different species, so many different forms of life, all of them united in grief and wonder. "I have been a diplomat for 300 cycles," she began. "In that time, I have met thousands of species, attended countless ceremonies, witnessed moments of great joy and terrible sorrow, but nothing in my experience prepared me for what I witnessed 3 weeks ago." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "When humanity first came to this hall, I did not know what to make of them. They were young, barely 1,000 years into space travel. They had no great empires, no ancient wisdom, no legendary warriors. By every measure the Federation uses to judge a species, they were unremarkable." A murmur passed through the crowd. "And yet they called themselves something that I found strange. They called themselves children of a star. I asked one of their leaders, Commander Sarah Chen, what this meant, and she told me something that changed the way I see the universe." Zareth looked up at the domed ceiling of the hall, where a holographic representation of the galaxy slowly rotated. "She told me that every atom in her body was forged in the heart of a dying star, that the iron in her blood, the calcium in her bones, the carbon in her cells, all of it was created in stellar furnaces billions of years ago. She told me that she was, quite literally, made of stars." She lowered her gaze back to the crowd. "I knew this fact already, of course. Every educated being in this hall knows it, but I had never felt it before, not the way the humans do. For them, this is not just a scientific fact. It is the foundation of their identity. It is the core of who they are." She took a breath. "When the Devourers attacked Haven's Rest, the Federation responded as we always do. We sent ships, we made plans, we fought bravely, but we were losing. The Devourers were too powerful, too ancient, too alien. We could not defeat them with conventional weapons." The hall was utterly silent. And then the humans did something that none of us expected. They volunteered to sacrifice themselves. 20 ships, 2,000 beings, all of them knew they would not return, and they went anyway. Zareth's voice broke slightly, but she continued. "I asked one of them why. Why would they give their lives for species they barely knew, for a federation they had only recently joined? And he told me something I will never forget." She quoted Okonkwo's words exactly as she remembered them. He said, "The stars gave everything for us. How can we do any less for others?" The silence in the hall deepened. Beings who had never cried were crying now. Beings who had never known humans were mourning them. "The humans understood something that many of us have forgotten," Zareth continued. "They understood that we are all connected, not by politics or treaties or trade agreements. We are connected by the very atoms that make us. We are all children of stars. We are all family." She gestured to the holographic galaxy above. Those 2,000 humans did not die. They became what they always were, light and energy and matter, spreading out across the universe. They are part of the cosmic dance now, the endless cycle of creation and destruction that has shaped everything we know. They have gone home. Zareth stepped back from the podium. The Federation has decided to name the sector where they fell the Chen Expanse in honor of their commander. A memorial station will be built there, a beacon that will shine for all time as a reminder of their sacrifice. She paused. But I do not think they would want us to remember them with monuments and memorials. I think they would want us to remember what they taught us, that we are all stardust, that we are all family, and that sometimes love requires us to give everything we have. She bowed her head. Rest well, children of the stars. Your light will shine in us forever. In the years that followed, everything changed. The defeat of the Devourers marked a turning point in galactic history. For the first time, the Federation had faced an existential threat and survived. But more importantly, they had learned something about themselves. They had learned what sacrifice truly meant. They had learned what it meant to be family. And humanity, despite their losses, had become something more than they had ever been before. The children of the stars were no longer seen as young or insignificant. They were seen as teachers. Other species began to study human philosophy, human culture, human spirituality. They wanted to understand how beings so short-lived and fragile could face death with such courage. They wanted to learn the secret of the stars. And slowly, something remarkable began to happen. Species that had been enemies for millennia started talking to each other. Old grudges were set aside. New alliances were formed. The Federation, which had always been a loose collection of self-interested powers, began to become something more. It began to become a family. Zareth watched this transformation with wonder. She had lived a long time, seen many things, but she had never seen anything like this. A galaxy of strangers becoming a galaxy of siblings, all because of what 2,000 humans had done on a battlefield far from home. 30 years after the Battle of Haven's Rest, Zareth returned to the Chen Expanse for the anniversary memorial. She was old now, even by Velian standards, and this would likely be her last visit, but she needed to see it one more time. The memorial station was a beautiful thing, a spiral of crystal and light that rotated slowly in the void. At its center burned an artificial star, small but bright, a reminder of the fire that had saved them all. Zareth was not alone. Thousands of ships had gathered for the anniversary, carrying beings from every corner of the Federation. Many of them had never met a human. Some of them had not even been born when the battle took place. But they came anyway, to pay their respects, to remember, to feel connected to something greater than themselves. As Zareth stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the gathered fleet, a young human approached her. She recognized him immediately. David Okonkwo's grandson, also named David, now serving as a Federation diplomat. "Ambassador Zareth," he said with a respectful bow, "it's an honor to finally meet you. My grandfather spoke of you often in his letters home." Zareth was startled. "Your grandfather wrote to you, but he died in the battle." Young David nodded. "He left messages for all of us, videos, letters, journals. He recorded them during the journey to the Devourer fleet. He wanted us to know why he made the choice he did." He pulled out a small device and activated it. A hologram appeared, Lieutenant Commander Okonkwo, looking tired but at peace. "To my future grandchildren," the recording said, "if you're watching this, then our mission succeeded. We stopped the Devourers, and I'm sorry I won't be there to meet you." The hologram smiled. "But I want you to know that I'm not sad. Not really. I'm doing what our ancestors have done since the beginning of time. I'm giving everything I have so that others can live, just like the stars that made us." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "You might wonder why I didn't stay, why I didn't choose safety, why I left your grandmother and your parents behind. And the answer is simple: because I love them. I love them so much that I would do anything to protect them, even this, especially this." His eyes seemed to look directly at Zareth, though she knew it was just a recording. We are children of stars, David. Never forget that. The fire that burns in your heart, the iron in your blood, the light in your eyes, all of it comes from sources older than our world. We carry the legacy of countless suns, countless sacrifices, countless acts of creation. He leaned forward. Live well, grandson, love deeply, give generously, and when your time comes, don't be afraid to shine. That's what we do. That's who we are. We burn bright, and when we're gone, we leave light behind us. The recording ended. Zareth stood in silence, tears streaming down her face. Young David was crying too, but smiling through his tears. He wanted me to show you that, David said. My grandmother, Commander Chen, she left a message for you too. Would you like to see it? Zareth could only nod. Another hologram appeared, and suddenly Sarah Chen was there again, looking exactly as she had on that final day, bloodied and exhausted but radiant with purpose. Hello, Zareth. If you're watching this, then we succeeded. And if my grandson is the one showing it to you, then the timeline has worked out the way I hoped. She laughed softly. I want to thank you for trying to understand us. I know we're strange, we humans. We're young and messy and contradictory. We fight wars and write poetry about peace. We fear death and run toward it when others are in danger. We're ridiculous, really. Her smile faded into something deeper, more serious. But we're also wonderful. And so are you, Zareth. So is every being in this galaxy. Every species, every culture, every individual, all of you are children of stars. All of you carry the legacy of cosmic creation. All of you have the potential to burn bright and leave light behind. She reached out, as if trying to touch Zareth through the recording. I hope that when I'm gone, the universe is a little brighter. Not because of what I did, but because of what it inspires others to do. That's the secret, you know. That's what the stars teach us. You don't have to last forever. You just have to shine while you're here. She pulled back, her eyes glistening. Take care of yourself, ambassador. Take care of my people. And when you look up at the sky, remember, I'm out there somewhere, part of the cosmic dance. We'll meet again in one form or another. That's how the universe works. She smiled one last time. Goodbye, Zareth, and thank you for being my friend. The hologram faded. Zareth stood in the darkness, surrounded by stars. The artificial sun at the heart of the memorial burned steadily, a tiny beacon in the endless void. Around her, the gathered fleet waited in respectful silence. She thought about all she had learned from the humans, about sacrifice and courage and love, about what it truly meant to be alive in a universe so vast and ancient and beautiful, about the fire that burned in every heart, the light that lived in every soul. And she understood, finally, what the humans had been trying to teach her all along. They were all children of stars, all of them, every species, every being, every atom in the cosmos. They were all made of the same stuff, born from the same fires, connected by bonds older than worlds. And when one of them suffered, they all suffered. When one of them shone, they all shone brighter. That was the secret. That was the truth that the humans had carried with them from their small blue world to the farthest reaches of space. That was why they could face death with courage and sacrifice themselves for strangers. Because they knew, deep in their bones, that there were no strangers. There was only family. Zareth turned to young David Okonkwo. Thank you for showing me those recordings, she said. They mean more to me than I can express. He nodded, understanding. What will you do now, ambassador? Zareth looked out at the gathered fleet, at the memorial station, at the stars beyond. I will do what your grandfather asked, she said. I will live well, I will love deeply, I will give generously. She smiled. And I will teach others what your people taught me, that we are all made of stars, that we are all family, that our light never truly dies, it only transforms into something new. She reached out and took his hand. That is the gift your people gave us, David, not just the victory over the devourers, but the understanding of who we truly are. And we will carry that gift forward, generation after generation, species after species, until every being in this galaxy knows the truth. She looked up at the artificial sun, burning bright at the heart of the memorial. We are all children of stars, and our light will never go out. The memorial ceremony began. Ships from every corner of the Federation activated their running lights, creating a sea of stars around the station. Voices from 100 species rose in song, each singing in their own language, their own tradition, their own way, but all of them singing the same truth. We are made of stars. We are children of light. We burn bright, and when we are gone, we leave light behind. And that light will shine forever. Zareth closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. She thought of Sarah Chen and David Okonkwo and all the others who had given everything so that others could live. She thought of the stars that had burned and died billions of years ago, scattering their gifts across the universe. She thought of the cosmic dance that had been going on since the beginning of time and would continue until the last star burned out. And she smiled, because she knew now that even then, even at the very end, the light would not be gone. It would only be transformed. It would only be waiting to shine again. That was the lesson of the stars. That was the gift of humanity. That was the truth that would guide the Federation forward, through all the challenges and triumphs yet to come. We are all children of stars, and our light will never, ever go out.